So this is a follow-up to the Speaking Up and Standing Up video that I made. Still getting really used to this, or not really getting used to, attempting to get used to this, whatever it is I'm doing, potential podcast, whatever. I will, I guess, link the previous video in the description or something for this, and whatever. If any of this like resonates for you, or like somebody you know, anything I talk about, I'm not trying to say that what I have is like the worst thing ever. I'm trying to speak to dynamics. I'm giving examples of what I'm learning about my life, and I'm realizing how much that pertains to a ton of other people. Not that everyone's going to match my situation, because that would be weird, but dynamically I'm sure either you or like being whoever's watching this, either you personally have an experience like this that you can identify with, or you might recognize something about someone you know in these situations. So it's really to generate awareness, as well as just I need to find my way to say the truth, because what's going on around me is just epically false. And this is the only avenue I've got right now. So speaking in terms of that video, what I had talked about in regards to why I wouldn't go to the police around the thing that I was worried about that friend. So right off the bat, I'm realizing it's stupid that I haven't said names. His name is William Kurchansky. I'm saying that because a lot of the things I can say are actually, I can back up. So originally I was going to make this video to describe his fucked up behavior, and how wrong it is that he's been able to still keep in contact with me like this. And actually I was going to give examples of things he would do in my presence in front of my husband for years, and how that a lot of people can understand now why that's so messed up, and actually most people can't understand why I didn't say anything at the time. And it's because of the way I was raised, as well as the way I got patterned to the men in my life, that I didn't realize. So this is like speaking to a lot of domestic violence situations, especially around more of the psychological abuse, as well as like sexual abuse. It has to do with addiction. It turns out it's like sexual addiction, because it turns out that's really, really fucking prevalent across like every culture actually at this point, especially among men, because it also happens with women, because it also functionally doesn't happen to every man. So like, holy shit. So I'm also learning, just preface, background, whatever. I've learned recently that I am autistic on a ton of levels. Really looking at it more now from the standpoint of like neurodivergence is, I think, what I've heard it recently, or more supposedly correctly, than neuroatypical. So the way I think and perceive things appears to be actually seriously different than other people, which I've never known. As I'm learning this, some people catch on very quick if I say certain words like that, and they can suddenly understand a ton about me, or they can at least realize they need to observe me in particular to find what my expressions and whatever are. When I'm not in distress, nobody can tell, or rather when I'm not in distress, I look really quirky and whatever, because I'm actually happy and I'm actually spontaneous, and it turns out I'm living fully in the present, which is great, except that people don't realize I'm functionally under distress nearly all the goddamn time. So as well as with the speech patterns go, I have learned about Tourette's. So if you're offended by language, like I'm sorry, but that's just kind of tough, because I can't help it, especially I'm containing so much frustration right now. So it's just going to come out. And I'm going to, like, honestly, I need to just try and let myself just do this, because every time I clamp down, like, fucked up shit happens. So, I was going to, like I said, I was going to speak to a ton of the actual fucking details of my life around this asshole, William Kurchansky, and the fact that he's been terrorizing me through text messages, since, I don't know, a couple months ago. I don't keep track of time. I do and I don't. And it's like, it doesn't fucking matter. The fact is, like, he was actually, like, essentially terrorizing me, and, like, just verbally tortured me, like, anytime he was here. Because the content of his typical speech patterns, his types of stories, and actually what he would specifically say to me was completely out of line, and I actually didn't know that. So, I'm learning a lot. So anytime somebody comes to me and like, well, you shouldn't have let him do that. Like, well, you know what? Fuck you. Because you didn't obviously fucking realize what some people are raised like in their fucking families, okay? So I was specifically patterned to never say a fucking word no matter what the fuck happened to me. And it turns out what's happened to me has actually been classified as horrific, horrifying, like beyond imagination, from the psychologist that I ended up finding only after I found out I'm in like domestic violence situation, which only happened after I got abandoned in this house that I'm living in right now, which brings us to like the current standpoint. Turns out this is actually going to be about like this weird fucked up divorce situation that turns out to be completely malicious. It's a full-on narcissistic divorce, which I didn't know was a real thing until after it's always started happening to me. And then I'm finding a ton of videos on the internet going back several years, all the way to like the amount of information that has come out in the last couple months. Like the videos that these experts post are like are really informative, and I'm learning a lot. And I'm also learning finally that one of the reasons why everyone gets all butthurt about the term narcissism, like, well, everybody's narcissistic. Turns out, yeah, it's fucking true. Except it turns out there's also a form called like healthy narcissism. Didn't know about that, but like apparently that is what I've got. And I'm like, when I say stuff like that, it's because that is the feedback I've gotten, but it's also because when it happens, it actually resonates with me and I finally something clicks. So it turns out I'm insanely smart, like savant type prodigy level, if I had actually had anyone paying attention to me in any kind of actually healthy fashion when I was growing up. So whatever, I'll prove that as time goes on. I don't fucking care. That's just a point of interest to me because I realize I've lived my life feeling like a functional idiot. And it's because it turns out I'm actually that much more advanced than the people around me that nobody could understand what the fuck I was doing, and they constantly interrupt me. Or they'd sit around and just watch, and like I wouldn't understand like why they were watching, because all I knew was like I couldn't stand people watching me, because nobody understood how I got patterned around people and how a non-verbal child started talking so early in life, like a near adult with pretty shortly, and nobody caught it was because I was insanely overloaded sensory-wise, as well as I was getting, turns out it's classified, or like, again, the trauma specialist, recovery from like addiction and narcissistic abuse. This, as well as other people who then sometimes also then turned around and started like doing their narcissistic bullshit and like discounting me, were telling me what I've gone through is easily called torture. Whether the people doing it to me knew it or not. But then the things that actually were, other things that were done, clearly not fucking okay. Like, the rapes. Like the fact that nobody caught, because, nobody catches that shit to begin with, that I was raped as a baby or like an infant or a toddler, whatever. I don't fucking know what time period. All I know is that there's a pattern to my memories that traces back to like why the rape nightmare started and all this other stuff. Because I didn't know why I was in pain down there. I only know that I was, and I could never figure out why. And it's because my psyche locked certain things away so I'd survive. But because of the other things that were going on, I could never settle or recover on any level, because I was constantly sent away to my room, isolated, because I was out of line and I was bringing people down, because apparently I was expressing emotions of frustration around behavior that was considered torturous. And because they didn't know they had an autistic child, the fact that I was silent and I would stare at them and not say a word, and then either go about and do my own thing anyways, or, that's what would end up getting me hit and sent to my room. Didn't always get hit before sent to my room, but clearly always sent to my room. And the amount of times I heard, "Don't you look at me that way," or, you don't have to say anything, I can see it in your eyes. Well, apparently my eyes were showing that I was upset over, like, really fucked up abuse. And they didn't want to think they were bad people, so they got mad and put me away. And because all I ever wanted was to not cause problems, and I wanted other people to feel better, I never noticed how awful I felt. It turns out I am one of those people that has very little pain response. So the fact that I've been in pain my whole life was actually highly indicative, and I understand why nobody caught this beforehand, but also on every level, no one ever bothered trying to listen to me. So whatever, it is what it is. But now that I do know, and I actually am finding other people, either in certain specialties, like as far as like the trained professionals, because yeah, that means a whole lot on a lot of levels, or people that turns out to be actually like me. They know it's a thing. A ton of them are younger than me. So like they grew up slightly differently, thank God, except, it's not like they've had an easy time either. And not every one of them that I found that are like me had actually any help. A lot of them figured this out on their own too. So piecing these things together, it's now on a scale where the video I made effectively did what I wanted to do, which was just make something public, and so that I would feel better about it. I actually felt fairly relieved. Like the next day, I went into a full meltdown after I made that video, but the next morning when I woke up, I was actually feeling fairly confident. So I had actually gotten up to start working on an art project, because actually I know that art expression turns out to be one of those things that gets me in the zone, and that is actually a healing thing. And at this point, I'm learning about energy work. I didn't realize I'm an energy healer, all this other crazy stuff that actually is really fucking cool. And it is going to turn this around, and thank God, because it sure as fuck didn't get helped by Western medicine, because the pattern of what's happened to me, they've actually initiated this response before. Because this, I don't care what else anybody thinks, and that they think I look great, this is edema. My face shouldn't look like this. This is chubby. It is, my entire body is full of fluid, because I cannot process, and filter the blood and like whatever in my body properly, because it's not just my liver, it's not just my kidneys, it's like basically everything below the diaphragm. And then it was actually confirmed in a weird way that, like, yeah, I'd always suspected there was something odd with my heart, except like it never happened very often and rarely ever in front of people, and I certainly couldn't make it happen in front of a doctor, so nobody ever checked anything. So now, like, it's really proven that I've got an erratic heartbeat. So it's now also known that in a way my lungs are compromised, but in the way they're not, because for some reason I can display, like, I can get into yoga type breathing techniques like super easy. There's something actually that's hyper functional about my lung capacity, but there is something wrong with my heart. So that apparently scared one of my doctors bad enough, who isn't like a traditional Western doctor. Turns out, coincidence, but is there really coincidence? Who knows? I actually, people do know about this. I'm not getting into that right now. The day after, as I'm sitting down to try and do like an art project that'll be therapeutic from the standpoint of processing trauma, therapeutic from the standpoint of it's calming and relaxing, it'll like actually reduce the stress response in my body. Because everyone's so worried about, like my nutrition, but, it's like it doesn't actually matter how well I eat when I'm under this much stress that nobody else can tell from the outside. But obviously my system knows it's not fucking digesting right now. So it doesn't matter what kind of good food I put in or what kind of like bland food I put in. It's not getting absorbed properly, because my body is like never in the rest and digest phase unless I'm like actively meditating, except meditating also puts me into seizures, because that is actually something that needs to be processed out. Whatever, also not getting into that right now either. But she, turns out, called in the welfare check that I made another like little post about, but like mostly in text. So I got terrorized for like 4 hours by the cops and like I guess the mobile support team or something like that, because the minute I opened the door, and I was, like I said, I was about to sit down and do this art project, the doorbell rings. I'm gonna let it go because I'm literally trying to avoid people, because I don't know what the fuck is going on around me. So I was literally staying home for my own actual protection, because people blow up at me for the weirdest reasons. So as I'm sitting down to do that, the doorbell rings. I'm ignoring it. Then my dog starts getting really agitated. So I know actually that means the person never left. So I get up and I check it. And as soon as I open the door, I immediately went into a panic attack that had no outward sign. Because that is the level of my dissociation, especially, like for instance, actually this was something that the psychologist helped me figure out. In my peak distress, whether it's emotional, psychological, or physical, like under physical attack, I take on apparently a zen-like look of calm, and sometimes I actually look strangely pleasant. Or I look incredibly stone-faced, which can make me look really intense. But it's me trying to contain the fact that I have actually been pushed in through stress into a seizure mode, and I'm trying to maintain control to talk, because I know that if I just slammed the door in their face, that actually would have made things worse. So luckily I did remember, everything about like they're not allowed in my house without a warrant. But, and they kept acting like, oh, they respected my no and that I have a right, to like not let them in. But they wouldn't stop asking. They wouldn't stop. And they even several times just attempted to just go right into my house as if it wasn't no thing. And I turned around like, what are you doing? And they tried to use my dog as the excuse. Because they were trying to get into my house because the welfare check included apparently some concern about my eating. So they decided that I was lying that there was food in the house. So they had actually brought up the term 5150, which I know is absolutely not fucking okay for the situation I'm in right now, especially since that was what they tried to do to me on May 15th, because I was having seizures and nobody around me knew about the impaired awareness or aware or impaired awareness seizures, something like that. God, I'm getting screwed up right now. Whatever. So turns out, none of the local people know anything about that. Ambulance people, people in the ER, whatever. So, but by the second time I went to the ER, I spoke, even though like shotgun fast, whatever. Like they were horrified to hear what I described happened in May, and that was actually a full contribution by my husband talking to the nurse when I gave partial consent or conditional consent that he could talk to my husband if he stayed on speakerphone in the room with me, which he did not do. So between the two of them, they made sure that I didn't get any physical evaluations. I was only there for a psychiatric evaluation because they decided I was delusional, psychotic, and I was admitted for hysteria apparently. So flash forward to this, like I am now more traumatized by the medical staff and world than I've ever been in my life, especially after learning that they keep giving me treatments and procedures that have actually harmed me very badly. Also considering that since the end of March and especially in May, I was completely... Apparently I turned into like a 7-foot tall angry black man waving machetes or something, because security guards in the emergency room, 3 of them, stood outside the door of my room that they kept shutting me in and leaving me in despite like the alarm going off on my monitor system, and backed up and squared off and like basically arrayed themselves around the door in case all 3 of them needed to tackle me, it looked like. And the way they were, body postures were, it looked as though they had all wished they had something in a holster position. Because I'm crying in a panic and backing away from the door because I was trying to find out why the psychiatrist shut off the video appointment or the video evaluation, because I was asking if he could hear me, because he was rewording all of my answers into something very odd. And because I know that there was an alarm going off in that room from when they basically first brought in the computer screen, because he was remote interviewing me, that I had set off the alarm on the monitor system. The only thing they had me attached to, which it turns out they didn't actually record even. So, it's got the little finger thingy and the arm cuff. So I know my heart rate had to have gone over 130 because I had been watching it between the mid 70s and the mid 120s constantly the whole time I was there. While I was trying to actively do breathing exercises to calm myself. I'm watching that much fluctuation, which I was trying to get any of the nurses to look at, but they wouldn't even look at me when they would wander into the room, and that wasn't even very often. So I know that it would go up to the mid 120s, and it didn't set off any alarms. So I don't know what the threshold is for the alarms on that monitor, but I do know that it was going off at the very beginning of that interview, and it actually might have even started going off before they finished wheeling in the unit. But I know from the beginning he started trying to ask me questions as if nothing's going on. So especially now that I know I'm autistic, and now I know for a fact that my sensitive ears, I actually hear more than the other people, and why it was so fucked up that an alarm system went off in a shut room that was meant to reduce sound. So it was just coming back at me, and he's just trying to ask me questions that are like functionally stupid, because he's trying to ask about like if I've ever seen a psychiatrist before, and I'd been seeing one for like 7 years, because it turns out that was bullshit that I was ever seeing him in the first place. But whatever. So he's trying to ask me questions. I can't, because like the entire room is just blasting through all of the bones of my body, and I was in such distress over what had triggered the alarm to go off, that he's just trying to ask me questions, and he's just like, why aren't you answering my question? I'm like, I can't even think. Can you hear that? Like, can't you hear, can you even hear me? Because he was acting like I was having auditory hallucinations. And he just started telling me, like, if I didn't start answering his questions, he was going to terminate the interview. And I was just like, I can't, you can't hear that? And he still wouldn't respond to a fucking thing I said. Now, I don't know how long it took, but somebody did come into the room, and I started to oh, thank God they're here to help. They only came in, unplugged the unit, and then walked right back out and shut the door again. But because of the only one person that actually looked at me the entire time I was there was one nurse who wasn't even supposed to be working in that area. And he told me that if I could talk to him and explain to the doctor the way I had just spoken to him, that it would all be all right. Because it turns out everyone wants to think that, the people up in charge or whatever, or the experts, are actually fair and gonna understand what's going on. So that's actually really sad that guy has that much trust in people like that. But whatever. So also when I did finally get myself released, because they were denying me any physical evaluation. So they were trying to get me 5150, and it nearly worked, until I realized, hey, if you're not giving me a physical evaluation, and I know I'm having physical symptoms, I need to leave. And then they acted like I couldn't, and I was like, I'm not saying I'm gonna fight my way out of here. I'm in socks and pajamas. I'm going to walk calmly out of here, because I know I need medical attention, and you're not giving it to me. So then they made me wait so they could basically lie on my chart. So I don't know actually why they put the numbers that they did, as far as the blood pressure and the heart rate and stuff on there. And then they just gave me a bunch of information about how to reduce anxiety, as if watching me have seizures in there, and then turning around and ignoring me on purpose, as if I was faking it, and they were just encouraging my behavior by giving me any attention. Because that was going to really reduce anxiety. And it goes on about how to talk to your friends and family for support, because they didn't realize how bad my support system is, and that they actually contributed to trying to get me institutionalized that day. So the fact that this doctor thought she was helping me out by turning the cops on me, when I know how fucked up my history with cops is, because she hadn't seen the video, because she's only seen me for a couple of months, and she got so worried about my condition that she, so it's a ton of people completely downplaying my condition on every level, because I don't look like, you don't look like. I was like, yeah, well, it turns out that's every fucking level, between autism, dissociation from trauma, that most people, it turns out, they can't comprehend, because I didn't comprehend. Stockholm syndrome, brainwashing, whatever, cult mentality. I didn't realize that existed aside from religious groups, whatever. because like I'm breaking out of it. It's fine. Like I'm fine. I know why I'm cutting off ties with people because I also know why, in theory, there's a possibility for later. But like they don't get to go at me like this when all they're doing is like orchestrating shit around me that is just designed to control, manipulate, and like keep me contained from like apparently telling the truth. Because I didn't realize the truth was so bad. Because I didn't think I suffered in my life. I didn't think I was abused. I used terms that other people told me over the years. Because nobody ever said I was abused as a child. They literally said everything else but that. But that, it turns out, that is the base of the gaslighting. And the fact that I was termed a hypochondriac by the, age of 3. When it turns out I actually was born with an already failing liver. And that it turns out I never recovered. And that's part of why a lot of my other organs are tanking, but it's also because they've actually been showing signs of this my entire life. But on every level, none of this was documented and put out in either none of it was known at all, or by the time when it wasn't put out as like an every, like a public thing. Like nobody got educated on it, or if they did, even like then my parents were behind the time because like they're in their own little fucking world because they're that traumatized. So it's like the generational trauma thing, but it's also the societal thing because it's all about everything. So I had already, put out the video talking about all these other things that are going off, and then I had the opposite end, not the malicious, narcissist who's trying to cover up what they've done by making me out to be the bad guy. It turns out to be like the savior type narcissist who believes that she understands my situation so much better than me, because it turns out she didn't understand why I was saying I can't trust my care to anyone around here if they're not going to pay attention to me. So it turns out she is the one who initiated the welfare check. And that is beyond fucked up, because I actually then, not knowing it was her, I was cycling through wondering, was it my family? Was it William? How did this happen? I finally decided it could not have been my family, but that was at first wishful thinking, because I was like, if they pulled this, knowing what they do know, the things that they will acknowledge that have happened to me, that is the worst thing I've ever fucking heard of, on top of everything else they've ever done. But I finally decided there is no way my parents would have done that. So then I had wondered, was it William? Because I was like, well, he is that strangely conspiracy theorist, and that is actually a tactic to beat someone to the punch by then turning around acting like you care. So I had also ended up locking onto William being a possibility because of, in his text, the way he would be all fucked up and be like, and just and eat something, bro, because nobody understood. It doesn't matter what I fucking eat because my body doesn't absorb it properly because the stress I'm under. So even though I'm living alone now, which turns out to be completely horrific, that I'm trying to live alone with all these seizures and all these other things and actual multiple organ failure. But that's the thing, nobody ever caught it, and I survived just fine. So it's fuck all of you guys. So I am working on it. I'm doing a ton of meditation. Because it turns out my third eye was always open. So actually that's actually fun to work with that. So the meditation things, the energy healing that I'm learning a ton of stuff, learning I apparently have all these crazy abilities, because who knows why, right? But some people know why. I'm not getting into that. Point is, I'm learning how I'm actually really fucking cool. I'm finally okay with myself. I'm finally not trying to kill myself. I'm finally thinking I'm worth standing up for myself and saying hey, this is not okay. And because I've started to do that, people around me have flipped the fuck out, and my situation is so systemically bad that the trauma psychologist has already stated that he is completely overwhelmed and he has never heard of anything like this, and he has no idea how to stop, essentially, the current narcissistic abuse, because he understands why what I'm saying is absolutely true, but it is on a interconnected scale on every level between personal and public and societal, whatever, that he cannot comprehend how this is possible, how every step of the way people fail me, how every step of the way I get dropped because there's always something else going on in somebody's life, whether they mean to or not. I get always lost in the cracks, because if I have to keep going back to that literally stresses me out. It actually prolongs and actually shows signs the swelling gets worse in my body. So I've been trying to do all this stuff, but I can't really get to it because just today I got hit with emails finally from my husband's lawyer, because now I'm representing myself, because more financial abuse. Fucking awesome. And now I'm learning that the last thing I'd heard, which was my husband was going to buy me out for my share of this house, which I was fine with, is now turning into, well, he doesn't have the money. Of course you're going to have to sell it. You need to get your stuff out of there, and then like pay for the, get the house cleaned or whatever. And then that'll come out of like your share of the, the house proceeds. I'm like, so, yeah, the fact that he's not taking, any responsibility for the fact that he completely deserted me, that he's been controlling my money this entire time, because she won't admit that, he completely fucking gaslit her, because he doesn't actually know what he's doing is wrong. That's how fucked up his brainwashing from his childhood is. Because it always happens before. But it doesn't fucking stop the fact that this is an active fucking malicious abuse cycle. He's controlling all of my access to my money. He's building a narrative and weaponizing lawyers, and other people have weaponized police because they don't understand why a woman living alone who has been persecuted her entire life, apparently for being or presenting as queer to other people, because my gender shouldn't fucking matter, neither should my sexuality. But apparently it does to everyone, because I didn't realize it's so fucked up that everyone would like think it's okay to ask me, like just come up like, what are you? Because they don't always look like that. Because nobody understands, except for other people that get that look of hate and rejection. Nobody understands how many times I've been looked at that way for completely different fucking reasons. Because the same reasons that they'll do that turns out to be the same reason that somebody will like love me on sight. Because everybody's different. Their preferences are different. It turns out it has to do with being open-minded or being comfortable outside the box, because I didn't know people were that fucking attached to a box that I didn't even know was fucking there. It's like Schrodinger's like, who knows what. This is ridiculous. So I was trying to get into more specifics so that people could like work out dynamic, whatever. Like, this is just fucking winging it at this point. I am so frustrated. I just want to get out and have my life. I have actually been trying to get moved out of this house already, but between people saying that they were going to come help me, that they flaked out because, either things went on in their life, or it turns out they were just, the narcissistic shine on, or like, love bombing, that like, oh yeah, they're going to help me, like all these promises, and of course they don't come true. So like, what the fuck ever. Like, I don't give a shit. But the point is, what I wanted to get done has not happened. I literally don't know how to find the right source thing, but I mean, I can work on that. But up until recently, everything I've done has been construed as like I'm doing something horrible to fuck over my husband. So anytime I try and do something, like I would get told like, well, that'll be coming out of your share. I'm like, yeah, okay, so what? Because my share should be like more than what you're trying to say. So he was trying to get me to settle, like after he had hired a lawyer, he was trying to get me to agree to terms without actually even consulting his lawyer. And because I was finally catching on to the fact that his word choices are completely cockeyed, I started really looking up these terms that he was lawyering up on. Turns out he was using them wrong. And then when I would ask him about it, then he'd tell me like I was misquoting him, because they really seriously, it's like the whole thing about like reading the transcripts from the trial, and like, well, I don't need to read it. Well, yeah, everyone should read it. It turns out it's actually like that. So people refuse to read their own fucking transcripts on purpose, because I know that I look back, every time I look back through text, I am also looking back at my responses too. I'm not just looking at theirs. And I pattern up and down. I look, if there's a problem thing, I trace it back to there. I look what happened before that to see how we arrived there. I see how it devolved there. I see, all these things, because I didn't realize pattern recognition is the way I do things. And I am always adjusting constantly, but I've been adjusting to the wrong people. So as I'm now repatterning in a different way, the abuse is actually getting worse in other areas, because they have roped in people. So this is like narcissistic triangulation or flying monkeys or some shit like that. Learning these terms really doesn't fucking matter. The point is, they're actually telling their sob stories, because sometimes they'll tell it in the terms of like, oh, I'm just so worried about her, like I don't know why she's like, she's not taking care of herself, like the thing with the craniosacral doctor calling in the welfare check. So again, I was terrorized. So as soon as I opened the fucking door and saw cops on my doorstep when they shouldn't have been there, like right after I made a video talking about how terrified I am by cops, and that specifically I've made a whole mention about how I devolve in person with people that won't understand that I am highly traumatized, that I'm working this out because I know I've processed out post-traumatic stress. I cannot maintain my fucking cool in the present, because when I do, it literally starts activating pain in my kidneys in particular, but my insides actually start to hurt when I have to control my emotions that much because I know somebody else has gone completely psychotic. Or just they're gaslighting the fuck out of me because they're trying to tell me I'm wrong, because I'm abusive, because I'm not making sense, because it's not up to me to make sense for someone else. There's nothing I can do about someone else understanding me or not. I have made my word choices. It is not my fault that I ended up accidentally reading so many fucking dictionaries growing up. So many different publications of so many different editions, playing with a thesaurus, fucked up lisp, thank you, all this other bullshit. Anyways, I know that there are a ton of different working definitions, for each word, because there's also a ton of different dictionary definitions. So I know the difference between connotation and denotation. I'm doing my best to talk. Turns out I am insanely good at it, but only with people who aren't trying to tell me that I'm wrong, that because I am neurodivergent, that I now need to match them. Because, why the fuck should I? Why the fuck should I have to match anybody? Except I do that naturally, because why not? What makes it not okay is the fact that I do that so well, and then they turn around and still put all the blame on every interaction on me. Yeah. It's not okay. Finally traced out through all the trauma recovery and stuff like that, I don't actually know when somebody's really bad for me, because I can't stop giving people the benefit of the doubt, even when I don't trust them. Because I didn't realize when I don't trust someone, it's almost always because there is actually something there that is really wrong. But I could never put names to what I was thinking or feeling, because I didn't know energy was real, but it is, and all this other stuff. But again, who the fuck cares? Because I'm trying to get my life together. They have kept me from a job for 13 years. They actually made me sick by fucking with me, by deciding that, they knew best, and nobody realized that actually I should have died, actually any fucking day of my life, but I specifically should have died when I was given the antibiotics to treat the Lyme disease. That, the doctor who gave them to me didn't know really anything about Lyme, so he didn't understand that I was actually showing signs of an old infection. So he treated me as if I was a new one. And then my husband, who was just dating me at the time, decided to keep silent about the fact that he didn't trust and that he knew that the dose was wrong. Except it turns out he didn't, if I had gone with the dose that he had, wanted me to go with, that actually would have really killed me. Because what I was given was a low-dose antibiotic. But it wasn't actually that it triggered the Lyme disease Herxheimer. It herxed everything. And because my then boyfriend stood around, I now realize completely fucking traumatized by my screaming. Because that's how bad it hurt. A person who never makes a fucking sound when they're physically attacked. Just trying to leverage myself out of bed to get up to use the restroom, I would get startled into shrieks and screams. And because I didn't realize how fucked up I was, that he actually wasn't ever even trying to assist me to get up. He would stand basically in the middle of the bedroom, between the door and me, nowhere near me, looking like he's about to have a fucking meltdown. Looking like, he's crying, just standing there, and I would immediately shut off my screams, pant really hard for a while, and then tell him, don't worry, it's okay, it's better now, I was just caught off guard. So I would clamp down on a very true, very accurate emote, to emote what was actually happening in my body, and to manage his panic. I clamped down on that shit and played it off like it wasn't that bad. Because it turns out that is the way our dynamic worked the entire time. Anytime he showed any signs of distress, I immediately completely stopped whatever I was doing to try and manage him. And yet I was the one kept from work for 13 years because I'm the sick one. Because nobody knew what he was saying or doing to me when no one was around, and I didn't know that it was bad. I didn't understand what was driving my suicidal attempts in the last 3 years since my car accident. I didn't understand. I was being pushed into it. And now I'm being made out to be the abuser. That I'm, just taking advantage of him, that he's worked so hard to provide for me this whole time. And anytime I'm trying to assert, like, hey, I deserve my money back, because he bullied me into giving up all of the money from my car accident award, which turns out it was completely not enough, because I didn't realize then that the two main doctors that were supposed to be charting what happened to me, and also what my parents' car insurance did, was completely irresponsible. It's like the two doctors, essentially, it's a malpractice situation. But so I can't even deal with the malpractice situations because I'm trying to deal with this divorce lawyer thing, because I should actually be dealing with the health problems. But actually the delays on the health problems is actually good, because it's not like anything the doctors here are going to come up with are actually going to help, because I'm literally going to prove, like, this is, like, I got this shit. Like, seriously, fuck all you guys, I got this shit. And so I'm not worried about that. What I am worried about is the fact that doesn't matter what I fucking do, people are trying to get me institutionalized or made to pay for things, because apparently I'm, really horribly abusive for not actually ever getting the proper recovery and care over all the things that have happened in my life, because I didn't know I was in an active abuse situation in my own home. So I had actually gone through a behavioral health program, like a partial hospitalization program, like back in, I think it was like 2016 to like the beginning of 2017. And I was actually doing pretty well with that. And I didn't realize like why I was actually completely unsupported in that, because he was using the words that he supported me. But anytime I came home and tried to practice what I was doing, he would praise me when he felt like it. But then other times, if I tried to talk to him about it or try to implement any of the skills or communication like templates that we were trying to work with, scripts we were trying to work with, I didn't realize how he would completely wave me off, go to his phone, work on, play on the computer, zone out, or like beg off and say he needed to go to bed. And then how wrong it was that he was constantly still trying to have sex with me, because I had never really been able to process out all the times I'd been raped. Actually, the awareness around that has only grown since then, because after that, at the end of 2017 is when my car accident happened, and the flashbacks all, like the memories all came back. And I didn't understand what flashbacks were there for. They're there to help you pattern in things you never identified. So they come back because something in your present brought back a memory. That memory is dynamically similar to what is happening in your present. That's why it shows up. It's trying to tell you you're in another bad situation. This is the pattern. You didn't know it before. This overlays. Find the similarities and stop, recognize those similarities earlier the next time you encounter that, or get out of it now. There's a reason why that happened. So the fact that I kept saying, like, it's like my entire life is flashing before my eyes, like I thought this wasn't supposed to happen until you die. That, when I was like, this is nonstop whirlwind, it's like spinning like this insane Rolodex over and over, and then suddenly the boom, one or several will shoot out, and I'm like, why does it feel like I'm a child again, and I'm standing in the hallway and the doors have just slammed and I don't know what's going on? It's because it's that isolation portion of the narcissistic rage, because that's what I was going through alone here with my husband during shelter in place, right after coming out of a healing ceremony, right after like finally clarifying a ton of things, to the point where all of a sudden, like, now turns out, I know somehow quantum physics, quantum metaphysics, calculus, didn't know, learning apparently my artwork, I've been channeling things, my goofy little statements turn out to be like really true on levels that I don't think they are. But then when I find out, I was like, well, yeah, that's partially why I did say it, but it's part of the things that I think are obvious that other people I think are profound. I don't think they're like really obvious to me. I don't think there's anything special about it. And other people are like, oh my gosh. And then so like, wow, you're so deep. And then other people turn around like, God, you're so selfish. You just unload your shit on everyone else and you won't take responsibility. I'm like, yeah, do you know why I don't usually talk? Because weird shit happens like this. So basically, as soon as I stopped being like the best listener and like just massaging their ego, because I didn't know that's what I was doing, it turns out I functionally cannot let a bad trait just sit. I automatically balance it with something positive about the person, and it turns out I am distorted about their ratio of like good qualities to bad qualities, because that's subjective also. Because like I think anyone can be redeemable. I mean, maybe they should be, like kept away from other people for a while until they calm the fuck down and stop lashing out at everything. But like, everything can be turned around if the effort is put in and if the person, like the whatever is, receptive to it. Because, it's not like they're required to be receptive to it. But then it's like, whatever. Like, I don't make these decisions. It's not my job to make decisions for other things that are alive or other things that just exist. The only thing I'm learning that I can take charge of is mine, and I was trying to destroy my existence, like, basically since the age of 4 to 6. Like, it's been a hardcore, nonstop thing until January 1st of 2020. This is how new it is that, like, I'm not trying to kill myself, and then I'm actually being pushed into psychologically. I'm basically being tortured, and to the point that once I finally, like, had actually even been free of the suicidal ideation, I got pushed right back into the ideation, got pushed right back into the urges, like hardcore, except I now had complete control of the fact that I will not do a fucking thing, unlike getting pushed to the edge as I had in the past. So I know I'm going to survive that. I didn't know even back then that the things that were going on in my body and the way had been throwing up, leading even up to my healing ceremony, was actually showing all the signs that my liver has been failing since birth. So, whatever. Again, as I get through this, like, certain symptoms go away. I'm literally healing through all the layers. That's actually why they now can tell about all the organs, probably because this is part of the final layer. So, I, again, am cool on this shit. I've got this. I can actually probably help other people figure this shit out, too, because it's really... Strangely enough, I'm finding it's actually just like one conversation can be the thing to that literally unlock everything for another person. So like I am fucking solid for the rest of my life for a ton of fucking reasons, but I am having a shit ton of trouble getting out of my situation because I don't have that much money. None of the nobody does pro bono right now apparently. And on every level, like, my situation is so complex that people just keep telling me that they can't take it on because it's too complicated and they've got all these other clients or whatever. So on every level, I'm finding out people's limitations, not finding out the way they can work with me here. So I'm, yeah, because they all know how broken the system is and they just keep apologizing and then they just tell me, like, God, it's so much. I'm like, yeah, and you didn't even hear the tip of the iceberg and you're freaking out for me and then telling me, like, how, like, oh my God, I can't help you, because at that point, they get so... apparently overwhelmed by my situation by learning just a little bit of it, and they have literally, of course, not fucking experienced this from themselves. They go right into like, oh my God, there's nothing I can do for you, I wish I could. I'm like, actually, there's a ton of shit you can do for me. There's everything that you won't acknowledge because you got patterned into a very set way of thinking about how to do your job. So if you're an advocate and then you're telling me, like, there's nothing I can do for you, then literally you're not a fucking advocate. Straight up. You are getting a paycheck and you are taking up the space that could be filled by somebody who will actually help people who need it. That is messed up. People that think they're helping others because they've got a judgment on it and so they think they're the authority, so either they're narcissistic from that sense, or they've been patterned into narcissism because really they're patterned into obeying somebody higher up. So instead of, if these advocates know that my situation is horrible and they're just like apologizing, like, I can't believe it's so bad. And like, okay, well then what are you going to do to help? like, well, I can't do anything because I've got to do this because of the law. I'm like, right, and you know the law is not made to help people. And they're like, I know, that's why I got into this. Like, so now you're telling me you can't do why you got into this. Like, really? Really? They, like, admit that they shouldn't be there. And apparently their apologies to me, because, you know, they understand it so much. And, like, actually, you don't understand anything. You are understanding it's overwhelming. But, like, you still haven't even gotten close to dealing with what I've actually fucking lived through, it turns out. Let alone what I'm dealing with currently. Because apparently my situation is that horrifying that I go around traumatizing people left and right because I didn't realize other people's capacity to handle awful things so fucking low. This has to do with like their inability to be uncomfortable with things, and their inability to empathize in a healthy fashion, I guess. Whatever. But I am tired, and this wasn't supposed to be this long, but whatever. Just, god damn it. Anyways, my kidneys are actually tingling and like throbbing really bad, so I should go take care of this anyways. Fuck. I don't even want to review this right now. I'm wondering if I'll just fucking post it. I might. God damn, then I gotta figure out all the tags. I'll do that later. I would like out of here too. It would be nice if I can get some health to get out of here. Apparently now it's completely fine that I just take whatever the fuck I want out of here. Even though before he was acting like it's all gonna have to be sorted out, because before that he was like, there's nothing that needs to be split. But then before I even knew there was a divorce, he was taking things from the house. And then I got served with divorce papers, only to find out that makes it so he actually broke the court-ordered mutual restraining order, which didn't have to do with our contact or proximity to each other. It had everything to do with property and assets and things like that, that had to be mutually agreed upon to liquidate or whatever, or to, you know, distribute out between the two of us before anything was done. So he violated his own fucking contract within, you know, apparently like 3 days of it being electronically filed, which was also, but so the day he violated it was actually the day before I got served. But those papers clearly state that that mutual restraining order went into play the minute it was filed. And then he tried to tell me that his lawyer didn't give him the summons portion of the petition for dissolution of marriage. And it was the back of the summons that had the court order, mutual restraining order, because it turns out the way the courts use restraining order and the way the police use restraining order, two different fucking things. So he signed something that said that he had read and understood the mutual restraining order on the back of the summons, and that he understood that that applied to him as well. And that is the last bold point of that dissolution contract, whatever, before he signs it. He dated it for the 10th. It was electronically filed on the 16th, and I don't even know why it took 6 days for her to do that when it was all through email, it turns out. I got served on the 20th, except he was at the house between the 16th and the 20th because I didn't know it had turned into this situation, because he just kept acting like he wanted to help. So I went to go do 4 days of ceremony around some Native American practices, because that was part of my path to healing in the last several years. So I finally found a situation to go do that. I was there for 4 days, and he was at the house supposedly taking care of things that needed to be worked on before he ever left, and take care of the dog and the cat because I was worried about them. And while he was here, he proceeded to do everything against the agreement that we had by phone before that, because I was writing things down and he was writing things down. And then he got so angry with me during the course of the conversation, we never even got a chance to compare notes. So then I find out later that he supposedly wrote completely different notes, because everything he did in the house was completely not what I had told him that he was allowed to do, because I had already told him if he had moved out and he's acting like he's not going to come back, or if he's going to come back, he has to relate to me first, because I'm the one that's actually living here. and on every step of the way, it was like what he wanted to do, what he, had to do, like, because he knew what was going on. If he, and if he was going to do it, it was going to be his way, which is exactly what my dad was doing. So it's like actually because as things pattern, it does seriously turn out to be the way my dad interacted with me and raised me, the way my mom interacted with me and raised me, and the way my sister interacted with me as we were being raised together. Nobody knew what I was going through because I didn't know. Because I just thought I had a rough time, that I was struggling, and I knew all things struggle, and I knew all things have a rough time, and I know all things are in pain, and I didn't know if I feel pain, I'm the type of person that you need to address something, because I actually should be functionally completely unaware of pain, because it turns out I can break balance without like actually really blinking. So who knows what this is gonna go like. Maybe I'll review it, because at this point I don't even know what I fucking said from the beginning. I might need to completely scrap this shit. I don't fucking know anymore. So it's frustrating because like life is really fucking cool. I want to go exploring the world, like all the different friends around the world that I've been making. Like, oh my fucking god, this thing, even around this country, like holy shit, is a world full of people like that are insanely cool. And like they live in the coolest places in a way, but they also live in the most fucked up places, because like around the world, it turns out it's really fucked up systemically. Everyone knows that, but then turns out a ton of people like to feel like they've got it worse than anybody else. Because nobody realized I have never once thought I have it worse than anybody else, except for dynamically I have it worse than some people some of the time, and clearly I knew that a ton of other people had it worse than me. I was actually exceedingly grateful that I didn't have a lot of things in my life that were going on around the world, or even in this country, only to find out now actually all that stuff was happening to me. Like straight up. It was all dynamically happening to me. And nobody thinks that was possible in this country, in that time period, to, a girl, because, like, why would you treat a girl that way? Because, I don't actually get treated like a girl everywhere, and I frequently get mistaken for a guy because, androgyny, because apparently that's a reason to hate someone too. Because apparently that's a reason to worship someone in another country. It makes no fucking sense, because it really doesn't fucking matter what you look like, does it? So, yeah, on every level, at this point, don't know if any of this like caught on with anybody, because god damn. So this is the problem. I keep trying to focus on one thing and I can't, because it's all interconnected, because that is the way life works. But whatever. So if there's stuff in here that make any sense to you, or like you can speak to some of this, got any advice of like some type of lawyer to look through. So like I'm trying to see now, at this point I'm trying to see if I can find one that'll like basically accept like a lien against my share of the house to like do this work, because like if I'm spending time on this, it turns out I can actually do an insanely good job representing myself. But I will need to take the time to learn some of this shit, and the fact that like nobody's gonna like really listen to the fact that this, like his lawyer and him and everybody I talk to acts like, I'm a problem and that I'm lying about things, because apparently I don't know, because I don't have all this other stuff, because nobody understood I'm actually that smart and I'm that quick of a learner. And I've been learning a lot very quickly during this whole fucked up process, because it actually now gives me a personal basis for understanding why I've been watching things my entire life and getting upset that nobody's helping people. So now I'm actually learning how, and it turns out none of it has to do with the system. So again, if this helps you for some weird reason, or if you want to like follow this in case people do come up with suggestions, if like they throw it in the comments, if anyone wants to keep checking this out, I'm going to keep trying to monitor it. Because it's not just for me, because actually one way or the other I'm going to come out of this relatively fine, and eventually after that I'm going to be more than fucking fine. I'm going to be fucking solid for the rest of my goddamn life, and it's going to be like great, because I'm actually laughing all the time when I'm not ranting on these things, because like actually life has become so fucking magic. It's actually funny to realize in the weirdest way how horrific my life has been. It's like, and I fucking made it. And I'm trying to have some fun, and I'm still having fun, but then I turn around and get blasted with some other shit that I couldn't see coming, because people outside of my view who are telling me I have to like it's it's none of my business what they do, and then they literally fuck up my actual daily life over shit that they don't understand why it's so fucking wrong that they just pulled that shit. So yeah, whatever. Trying to cut this off before the 1 hour, and I've got like a couple of seconds left, so like good luck, everybody. Whatever. Hope this gets better over time. And yeah, if this helps on any level, please share it. See if it'll help someone else. I'm not even sure what I'm trying to do here, but I'm trying to raise awareness and trying to just let you know that people's situations are like way more complex than they look like on the surface. So please just be kind and be understanding and be gentle with others and yourself. So thanks.